as a box. You don't need to write this down, I just want you to understand this. The single most important thing that you have been told, I was going to say you've learned, but we haven't proved that you learned it yet, is the petroleum system. That is the basis of our entire industry that you're being trained for. And the fact that the petroleum system happens to work on this lonely little planet in a far-off spiral arm of the galaxy is the underpinning pretty much of our entire energy supply. Anybody tell me what the 5 elements of the petroleum system are?
Seal.
Reservoir, source,
Trap, reservoir.
time of migration.
So there we have 5 things which you all got. I think those 5 words should not be, well, yeah, those 5 words should not be strange to you. Okay? I don't want to hear someone saying, what's the difference between a source and a reservoir, please? Okay? Those 5 things are the basis of the petroleum system. They all have to be present and correct for a conventional accumulation of hydrocarbons to work. Now, of those 5 things, which is the most important?
All of them.
Right. I had 2 answers, both of which were correct. Someone down here said all of them, which actually is correct, because if you want a conventional accumulation of hydrocarbons, you do have to have all of them. And I also heard people saying source, which is actually also correct, because without a source you can't do anything. So I would say that the source was the most important single bit of the petroleum system. If you drill into a structure that you've identified in seismic, and you drill into this structure and you don't find oil or gas in it as predicted, what you do, you don't sit down and sob and go and get a job in IT. You go to the next structure along, well sorry, 4 of you are going to get jobs in IT. So you go to the next structure along and you drill again because you're an optimist. That's what you do. So, you know, one trap can fail, but the next trap might work. The reservoir might be a bit thin and ratty here, but it might be thicker and better developed over there. But in the basin, if there's no source rock, you have nothing. So the source is the most important single bit. So know what constitutes the petroleum system and how the various bits work and how we measure it and so on. The other thing we've learned a little bit about are tools. And the tools in the petroleum system, in the study of petroleum, are the 3 really important things that you'll need to know a little bit about are seismic, you know, how it works, how you acquire it, how you process it. You need to know a bit about how you drill a well. And you've had the videos and things like that. Big clue, there's a really nice bit about drilling on Wikipedia. It's one of the better Wikipedia articles. And petrophysics, you've learned a little bit about petrophysics in other courses, but the fact that petrophysics exists. So these tools are what we use for studying the subsurface. And we also have another big tool that you've all participated in, and that is the study of analogues. Very important. And you have seen an analogue. You've all been to Fife, you walked along the shore, nice day, sun was shining, seagulls, pretty little village, etc., etc., but you saw some rocks. And those rocks are real reservoir rocks. If you turned your back on the rocks and looked out to sea, somewhere out there, there are rocks like that with hydrocarbons in them. And you understand that reservoirs are complex things. Reservoirs have problems. If there was no problem, we wouldn't need so many engineers, okay? So analogues are important. You learned some skills. You learned some skills, notably making maps. Now, I did not get you to contour maps because I'm a sadist and I want to give you a bad time, because I'm not a sadist and I don't want to give you a bad time. I want everyone to be happy. I gave you those maps to emphasize a few things. Most of what we do in the energy industry is based on maps. You know, where are we going to drill? Get out a map and select a location. What are the margins of the reservoir? Get out a map and mark it on. Where is the structure? Get out a map. The starting point for almost every discussion you will have is a map. Now what we've done is looked at one tiny subset of subsurface maps. We've looked at well maps that you can generate from wells. Now in some parts of the oil industry, notably a lot of the onshore US, where wells are cheap and seismic is expensive, it's much cheaper to drill a whole set of holes. And there's a bunch of geologists and engineers who spend their lives recontouring maps, possibly by a more sophisticated technique than you've used. But the technique I've taught you is a valid technique. And it tells you one thing. It tells you that you can take scattered data points and make some sort of coherent predictive model from those scattered data points. And that's what a map is. It's a predictive model. And if you have 3 points that you know something about, it could be the depth below the subsurface, it could be the net to gross. As long as those 3 points aren't in a straight line, you have a triangle. And within that triangle, you have a relatively good knowledge of what's going on. And as you go further and further and further from that triangle, your knowledge gets less and less and less. So the big take-home message of drawing a map is you have made some sort of predictive model of the subsurface. And, you know, point K on the map that you all sat down and did on Monday, point K, you used your map to predict at what depth you would meet the reservoir if you drilled a hole above point K. The other big take-home message is the map is just a model. It is not the Word of God. It is an approximation to the truth. And if I had 3 points, I could create one approximation to the truth. With 6 points, I could do a different approximation, hopefully a better one. With 9 points, I could get even better. And it's actually probably true to say that any subsurface map that you look at, however glossy, however shiny, however clever the person who put it together, is almost certainly wrong, because it is built from data points that are scattered. So that is the take-home message, and the take-home skill is how to deal with uncertainty. Right? And the last bit of the course is what I would call context. And the context is very easily expressed by the letter S, which we put 2 lines through. Right. The context is important because you are in a building. You're in a building, yes, of course you're in a building. You're in a business. You have to make money somewhere. Even if you go on to work for an NOC, even Saudi Aramco, you know, the world's biggest company, the world's richest company, they have to make money. If Saudi Aramco didn't turn in a profit every year, you could bet your bottom dollar that the whole board of Saudi Aramco would be in for a rather difficult interview with the government to make sure they did make some money. And every NOC, Statoil, KNOC, any of those companies, they have to make money. Obviously, the private, the publicly quoted companies like BP and Shell, they have to make money too. So you have to take all those skills and tools and knowledge and put them together in a way that someone can make a profit out of it. So that's the big picture of what we've done in the course. Let me just quickly talk about the assessments that you've done so far. I've just about finished marking the notebooks. Very close, final straight. I can't tell you how much fun it's been. Yes, I was dreading doing it when I thought there was going to be 70 of you. When I knew there was 137 of you, it got even better. The good news is you've all done it reasonably well. And the really good news is, unless there are some surprises in the last few, you've all passed. Hooray! Pats on the back. So, well done, everyone. You did a pretty good job of the notebooks. I haven't started marking the mapping yet, but a quick scan through shows that most people have done it fairly well. I'll tell you more next week, but that's looking pretty good. So you're actually going in, I could say that most of you are going into this exam with 60% of the course assessed from those two assessments. And most of you, I can't obviously swear to this because you know, I haven't marked the maps, but from what I saw wandering around, from what I've seen in the on the maps, most of you are looking at a pass so far, so you can relax and enjoy the exam. Now, the exam is something that you may not have come to you before. It is largely multiple choice questions. And everyone says, hooray, four answers, I'm going to get at least 25%. No, you're not. Because the way the exam is going to work is for the multiple choice questions, you get 4 statements. And each statement may be true or false. So yeah, I could put in 4 statements, and you're asked to say, you're given a little box and say which of A, B, C, or D is true. Well, it could be none of them are true, which immediately gives you 5 possibilities. But it could be A could be true, B could be true, C could be true, D could be true, A and B, A and C, A and D. You know, you get it. You can do the basic statistics. It is not a 25% chance. Okay? We'll go over some of the questions in a minute. And the next thing to say is that the most important thing to do is to read the question. Okay? Read the question carefully. So, for instance, what I find with things like this is you're asked, which of the following statements are false? And someone looks at it and says, oh, A is true, B is true, and D is true, and they're right on A, B, and D, without reading the word false at the end of the first sentence. So read the question, answer the question you're asked, rather than the question you wished you'd been asked. Okay? Very important fact that the biggest cause of failure in university exams is not answering the question you were asked. Fortunately, this is not an essay question, because there's nothing more depressing than reading an essay about something that someone wished they'd been asked rather than what they were actually asked. And it can be a beautiful answer, but it just doesn't get very many marks. But at least with this multiple choice approach, you'll have a better chance. Now,
sorry, David. Do we have to pass both the exam and the coursework to pass, or can the coursework drag us up and we fail the exam?
Another way of phrasing that question is, can I bother not trying? put it this way. I've run a similar course to this for many years, and previous to this it wasn't just the geology, it was a course called Overview of the Energy Industry, and I do not believe in failing people. I think when people get to this stage, as long as you put in a reasonable amount of effort, they ought to be able to pass. I think actually I always just go to the aggregate, okay? That does not mean you don't have to try, okay? Because you don't know what your mark is yet for the in-course assessment. Right, let's have a look at a predecessor exam, just to show you the style. And then we'll do a few. I've got a mock exam paper which should be ready fairly soon to put up, i.e. within 12 hours of now it will be up on My Aberdeen. Good news, they have actually sorted out the lighting a little bit. A little bit more? Right. I just want to give you a little bit of historical context here. Ignore the blah at the front of this. But, for instance, some of these things you can do. Which of the following statements are true? Right, methane is a hydrocarbon gas, true or false?
True.
Oil is a hydrocarbon.
True.
Hydrocarbon molecules must contain at least one atom of sulfur. False. Crude oil may contain a variety of different hydrocarbon molecules. Did I hear someone say false? Sir?
She knows everything.
If not, go and jump under a bus because you'll be wasting your time. Okay, so what you would put in there is A, B, and D. Okay, got the idea? Yeah. All right. So that is. I'll put this up just for a bit of fun, so you can see what's what there. So that will go on My Aberdeen. But what I want to do is show you some exam questions in a mock exam. Now let's go through the. Right. Your exam will be on Wednesday in the Johnston Dining Hall. Find out where that is, and could someone let me know where it is? It's worth 40% of the marks. There is a variety of question types, including multiple choice questions. You've got 40 questions to do in 3 hours. Okay? Now, some of them you can answer in a few seconds, but some of them you may need a bit of time, and particularly there are a couple of places where there are longish passages that you have to read and then answer questions on. Okay? So don't be cocky about this. So you've got, on average, 4.5 minutes per question. You must answer all the questions, okay? All the questions carry equal marks. It's a little bit unfair, but there's some squishy, easy ones that will get you the same marks as some more difficult ones. The really good news is that I am not a sadist, as I've already said, so there are no negative marks in here. But I will not, you can get half marks. You can get half marks. So, for instance, if you're asked for which of these statements is true, and there are 3 true statements, and you give me 2 of them, I'll give you half marks for that. But if you say all 4 of them are true, you don't get any marks. Just in case there are any tacticians out there. Okay? So there's 4 sections. There's a section on knowledge and understanding. Now this is a section, this is the longest section. This is the section that is based on on the lecture material, and I should say, all of this exam, anything that's on My Aberdeen is fair game. Okay? So if I posted a paper or something like that in My Aberdeen, then you should read it. If I have recommended you to read something, but it's not actually posted in My Aberdeen, that makes you a better person, but it won't be examined, okay? But if it's on My Aberdeen, it's fair game. So, you'll be asked to list 4 statements that meet a particular criterion, either true or false. In each question, there may be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 statements that meet the criterion. Write the letter or letters that meet it into the box provided. If no statement meets the criterion, write none in the box. In other questions, you'll be asked to write an answer in a box. You had a question?
Does that include the drilling videos, the ones on the drilling technology? You said
Yes. Yes. Would you answer this in a Louisiana accent, please? No, the videos, I mean, you should know the basics of a drilling rig, yeah?
So would we ask the question on what's the Kelly and what's the...
Yeah, that's fair game.
Okay.
But, you know, the detail of completions and things like that probably isn't. But just knowing the kit that gets you the answers from the subsurface. Section B is questions which test your powers of comprehension. You'll be given a passage of writing, and you'll be asked some questions about it. Now this is more really a test of your general intelligence. It'll be half a page to a page of writing. You have to read it and then answer some questions, and again they're usually the same style. What can you infer from that passage of writing? And section C is a little bit about logic. Again, it's some statements and see whether or not one implies the other. And section D, there's going to be a little bit of calculation, not terribly much, but just some calculations. Now, you're given 2 things. You'll be given an examination book. That's for your rough work. That, just leave that behind it. I don't care what's in that. Nothing in that book will be written. If you want to spend your time writing a little essay on what a sod I am, that's fine, but it won't be marked. The examination booklet, however, must be left in the room, okay? And that is what will be marked. And your name or ID should be there on every, you know, there is a box that says your name or ID. Write that in, okay? Yes, so the question paper, you must write your either your name or your ID, and of course we do anonymous marking, so you're under no obligation to write your name, but just be sure you write your right ID. And at the examination, you must have your student card with you. It must be on the desk. You'll come around and use that to tick off who was sitting the examination. Make sure it's not your very clever brother that's sitting the exam for you. Okay, so this is the sort of thing you'll get. So you'll see question paper, your name or ID. Write your ID in there, okay? Right. So in this particular example, you're shown a photograph. The photograph is obviously a picture of some rock. Which of the following statements are false? Figure 1 is a photograph of an unconformity, true or false? The rocks, oh sorry, there's a mistake there. Pictured in figure 1 were deposited in at least two separate episodes with a time gap.
True.
True. Figure 1 is a photograph of an igneous sill. Figure 1 implies at least one episode of deformation.
True.
Right, so the answer to question 1 is D. C, sorry, C. Okay? See the way it goes? Right. Which of the following statements are true? Schist is a type of metamorphic rock.
True.
All metamorphic rocks are older than all sedimentary rocks.
False.
Sedimentary rocks must contain fossils.
False.
Igneous rocks have crystallized from a melt.
True.
So A and D is the answer to that. I would confidently expect some people, if this was actually in the exam, I would confidently expect some people to list B in there, but it's not true. Right, relative stratigraphy is deduced solely from superposition. Thank you. It's deduced solely from observing cross-cutting relationships. The key word in that question, and this is why you read the question, is solely. And if you're not a native English speaker, remember, you can bring in a dictionary into the exam. We have to check it to make sure you don't have all the answers written down in it. But you can bring in a dictionary. The key word in there is solely. In fact, in other words, it's the only source. So, as soon as you see something like that, think about it. You think, well, I remember the law of superposition. The law of superposition states that if something's above something else, it's probably younger. Yeah? So remember that. So that certainly goes into relative stratigraphy. And cross-cutting relationships. Yeah, there was that picture in the lecture of the craters in the moon, and you could work out which was younger. And then all of a sudden you realize that there's two things that go into relative stratigraphy, and therefore those are two false statements because those are not the only things. Each of them on their own is not the only thing. Relative stratigraphy is deduced from radiometric age dating.
True.
False. Relative stratigraphy, you do not need any absolute age dating at all. Yeah? Absolute age dating gives you a number. And relative stratigraphy is number free. Relative stratigraphy does not require a numerical date.
True.
True. Right. So, A, B, and C are false. D is true. But I'm usually kind to you. Usually in the questions, there is a clue to things. You know, if you've got C and D, the definition of relative stratigraphy is that there isn't actually an absolute date. There is older than, younger than. You know, the Second World War happened after the First World War. That is relative stratigraphy. Absolute stratigraphy is the First World War was from 1914 to 1918. The Second World War was from 1939 to 1945. Okay. Question 4. What 5 things are required to create a conventional accumulation of petroleum?
Field, reservoir.
Yeah, what we had written there. Five words in there. Okay. To answer your question? Right. Which of the following statements are false? Now, this does not require you to have detailed knowledge of a drilling rig. What this requires you to do is read the question and think about it. So which of the following statements are false? The blowout preventers, which are 23 and 24 on the diagram, stop high pressure mud entering the wellbore. They stop high pressure mud leaving the wellbore. Okay? So A is false. Point number 4 on the diagram is the mud pump, and again you can actually work it out because you can see there's the mud tank, there's a big brown line going through, and a little circle coming off the drawworks, coming off the motor rather, and so that is true. The circulation arrows above the drill bit, 26, show drilling mud going down the drill pipe and returning via the annulus. True. Point number 11 is the travelling block. True. So, the only false statement in there is A. Okay? And then you're asked to identify the following features on the diagram above. The swivel,
10.
18. The gooseneck,
10.
10. Blowout preventers,
23,
23 and 24. You were actually told it, okay? So, remember, there are clues in the paper. Read it. The rotary table,
20.
20. And there's a big clue on there, there's a big arrow going round in a sort of rotatory kind of way. Okay? Okay. So, hang on, what's that doing there? Okay. Okay. No. That's an incursion from someone else. I'm going to have to go and look at that. Anyway, which of the, don't panic, you're not going to be asked about uranium-235. Which of the following statements are false? All right, everybody read question 9 and just into yourself work out which statements are false. Okay? I could give you 4.5 minutes because you got 4.5 minutes to do this. A. There are 3 main types of kerogen from which oil and gas are generated. True or false? True. Oil is dominantly sourced from type 2 and type 3 kerogen. False. Kerogen type is shown on a Van Crevelen diagram. True. Kerogen typing is based on oxygen, carbon and hydrocarbon ratios.
False.
Whoever said false down the bottom, go and look at the Van Crevelen diagram again. So the answer to that, what we asked, false or false? The answer to that question is B. Yeah. Now, this is one of the things. This is one of the questions to look out for. Because when you do something like that, it's very easy to write down the things you know to be true. Okay? So just think about what you're being asked. And that's why I put the word in bold. Are you being asked whether it's true or false? So, you know, what you can do, you know, you can scribble on the paper, I'm going to mark the bit in that box. Okay? Yeah, that's the bit I'm interested in. You can put little ticks and crosses on the statements and it won't bother the markers. Right, question 10. Which of the following statements are true? Hang on, let's do the same. Just take a moment or two. Okay, right then, 10A. Oil shale is a potential source rock that has not undergone maturation. You saw those in Fife, and we discussed the fact that they hadn't undergone maturation. Tar sands require a conventional trap. Shale gas comes from rocks which have not undergone maturation. The man with the most determined voice got it right. Recovery of coal bed methane. Oh, that was something from another thing, but coal bed methane is made from sandstones surrounding coal seams. False. It's actually made from the coal seam itself. Don't worry about that. That's from another exam paper. But you get the idea, okay? So you need to think about the statements. I can't really prepare you for the rest of the paper, other than to say it just requires careful reading. The answers are on the paper. You know, when you're being asked to think about a piece of writing or some statements or so on, it's not anything that. This is the section that deals with your knowledge. Okay, this is the thing you can swap for. The best thing you can do for the rest of the paper is get a good night's sleep. Yeah? The best preparation for any examination is to get a good night's sleep. Do not sit up till 3 o'clock in the morning going through my old lecture notes or something like that. It's a very fair exam. Most of the answers are actually on the paper, so have a fresh mind. Do not go out and get lashed the night before. That's also another. You can go out and get lashed, or was this the plan? Was this the strategy? Yeah. So just relax, enjoy it. Right, we've got about 15 minutes left. Enough about the exam. I'll post the mock paper on My Aberdeen. You can look at it. Anybody get any questions? Get back to me. Good question. Yeah, I can do that. I'll put it up in 2 forms. One with answers, one without. Okay, just like we did for the 5307 paper. Right, we've got 15 minutes. Are there any questions about any aspect of the course? And I don't mean specifically the exam, anything that's puzzling anyone that they want to raise now. You're first.
I saw that your calculation was that. So will you repeat the equation, or will you remember the equation about the calculation?
The only equation that you would have to remember in a calculation is the equation for oil in place, you know, the volumetric equation, which is one of the easier equations that you have to remember. Okay? So, someone tell me what STOIP stands for.
Stock tank oil initially in place.
Thank you very much. Stock tank oil initially in place equals. Right, one at a time. Yes. Right. One person give me one term in the equation.
GRV.
Sorry?
Porosity.
Porosity, okay. So there's one term. It's not generally the first one you put in, but since this is a multiplication sum, it doesn't matter what order you put them in.
NTG.
Volume.
Volume. Gross reservoir volume.
Net to gross.
Net to gross. Sorry, what was that?
One minus.
Right. I'll put it in as hydrocarbon saturation, okay? Are we there yet?
Formation volume factor.
Sorry?
Divided by.
Formation volume factor.
the oil shrinkage factor, or the gas expansion factor. Okay? Right. Now, what two elements go into the gross rock volume? Sorry? Area. The area
And the height.
within closure.
Height.
Thickness.
Let's call it thickness. Better to, who said height? Now, it's better to call it thickness, because thickness, it doesn't actually matter what depth it's at, you know. Yeah? So everyone comfortable with that equation? One of the easier equations you'll encounter.
What's the NG?
Net gross. That's the percentage of the reservoir that's usable. It's in the lectures. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll believe him.
So this is the percentage of the thickness that is usable.
Sorry?
Net gross means the percentage of the thickness that is usable.
Yeah.
It's potential.
And although I put in SH, what is SH? 1 minus SW. Okay, you now know from Graham that, well, so some of you know from Graham's course, for those of you who didn't do the petrophysics course, the reason we do this is it's almost impossible to measure hydrocarbon saturation directly. It's relatively, and I stress the phrase relatively, easy to measure water saturation. So you're not actually interested in the water saturation, you're interested in the hydrocarbon saturation. But you can calculate the water saturation much more easily than a very simple sum to turn that into a hydrocarbon saturation. So in the calculation part, if other than this, if there's any calculation, you will be given the formula. Okay? And who asked the question? Right, we get any other questions? Yes.
Ricky Gomez has done some stuff on rock fracturing and everything else.
Yeah.
Basically, is that fair game as well?
You mean
More circle.
no, it won't be. Well, I mean, something about fracturing might be fair game because it's on my Aberdeen, but you won't be asked to analyse a Moore circle. No.
Okay, cool.
Is that the question?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
Do we do AP wave and S wave calculations like for the lab book?
No. The question, if you didn't hear it, was whether or not you had to do the sort of P wave and S wave calculations. I take the view that since there's an exercise in the lab book on that, that's already been tested. Okay. Right, you've got 8 minutes, I think.
Roughly how many questions might be in each section?
Well, there's 4 sections, there's 40
40.
questions. On average, 10. Actually, I think the first section will be slightly longer than 10, which means that the other sections will be slightly shorter. Okay?
So, if like I have 3 answers, like if I do,
Sorry, hang on. Hush a minute, there's a question here.
so if I put like 2 right questions, like 2 right answers and 1 wrong answer, like in the same box, for example, A and B right, and I put D twice wrong, but I put it like as answer. Is that like half mark?
Well, I think I've already sort of half covered this. Let me give you an example. Let's say that the correct answer to one of these knowledge and understanding questions let's say the correct answer was I was looking for A, B, and D in the box. and you put, here's your box, and you put A and B, I would tend to give you at least a half marks for that. A and B gets you half marks. A, B, and C gets you A, B, C, and D definitely gets you 0. Keep trying it on there. Okay. Just 8? Nah. Nah. Actually, as I say, I've been running this sort of exam now for nearly 10 years, and people tend to do it quite well. The marks here are usually quite good. There are some years going to expect better than others, but I think it's actually quite a fair way of examining. By quite well, I mean they pass. There tends to be a bigger spread of marks off this sort of exam than there is off a conventional write me a dull essay on something boring type of exam. Okay? Right, I think we've got time for one more question. Or are you all happy? Yes? Well, I would not repeat specific exercises that have been done in the lab book. The question was, would anything in the lab book come up? The general knowledge that goes into the lab book might come up, okay?
What constitutes general knowledge?
Go away!
What about the field trip?
Oh yeah, the question is about the field trip. Well, the field trip has effectively been tested, but again, the general knowledge that's in the field trip might be relevant. Okay, that is fair game, but you would not be asked to remember specific bits of geology, but general teaching that you got on the field trip would be fair game. All right, now that's it. Hope you've enjoyed the course. Hope you've learned something. We will see you on Wednesday morning. I will post the mock exam overnight tonight, and I will be happy to answer any questions that people email to me. Hang on, hush. Be a little bit patient with me because because of this problem I've had with my email, I've got a huge backlog to work through. But if you write me an email that has a specific question about the course, what I'll do is I'll reply to it using my Aberdeen, so the whole class will see the answer to the question, because other people will be interested in the answer. So for the exam, I should have said, please bring a calculator that is not your phone. Okay? Calculator that's not your phone. I believe you all have calculators, yes? Good. You will not need advanced functions, but you will have to be able to add and multiply and things like that. Okay?
David, are we getting seat numbers for this exam or no?